Yeah, guys, attendance enabled. Okay, so guys, attendance is enabled. I only have 22 responses, so please mark your. By the way, just a question. So, I'm again sending these forms from Google Form, the attendance forms. Are you guys getting the original email or just the forwarded email that I send you guys?
The forwarded one.
Yeah, so that is the issue, right? I mean, the original email is not going through. I'm not sure what is the issue. Anyhow. Is the class still going on? Because I only have 54 people.
No, sir, it's done.
Okay, so I guess see, this is the issue, right? Let me check how many views are there on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have crossed 100. I saw it till yesterday night. It was only around 90 or something. Let me check. Mm, 73. Okay. So only 73 views are there for the lecture that we are going to discuss today. Right? This is why from the next week onwards, I'm going to start putting random quizzes. I won't even tell you when the quiz will be, and there will be a quiz some in the middle of a lecture. I'll simply stop the discussion after, let us say, a particular question was over, and I'll stop you guys, and it will be different for both batches. So it's not like so when there will be a quiz for CSAI plus, there won't be a quiz for IT plus, and when there is a quiz for IT plus, there won't be a quiz for CSAI plus. So this way you won't be able to help each other out either. So this is the only way I understand that you guys are going to study. Otherwise, we'll just lose all the steam that we have acquired all this while. Or the other way is that I reinstate the random Shepherd's formula. Okay, only then I guess people will study. Anyhow, so we have 60 people now. Let's hope that. Okay, I think that is half of the batch strength. 120 is probably the strength of your batch. It's back to 59. So it's not even 50% attendance. And okay, fine. Let's start then. Today I'm not going to entertain anyone's request for adding attendance later. Okay, so if you are in the lecture right now, mark it right now. I won't mark anyone's attendance later onwards. Okay, I've given enough time today. So if you have not marked your attendance, mark it right now. I won't mark anyone's attendance offline today. Okay, so let's start then. Who are yeah, so then she actually ended it in time. She asked me, she requested me, Indra ma'am, that can you please start about 15 minutes late? I said sure, I'll start 15 minutes late. Um, and then even then people are not there. So okay, so yeah, let me just open up my shepherding sheet. Okay. Yeah, so volunteers,
So me,
Pranav, right? Okay,
yeah,
Pranav, just a minute. You have to tell your
AI 10.
AI 10. And today is 3rd February, right? Okay. And okay, just a minute. Rama Kirana, your roll number and section.
CSA
CSAI 6. Okay. 6.
6.
Got it. Then who's next? Just a minute. Vatsal and Arunim. Vatsal yours and Arunim
Sir,
yours.
CA Vatsal CSAI 13.
13. Oh,
Sir,
thank
CS
you.
25.
Very good. All my shepherds are in one uh, screen right now. I mean, in the sheet, right? Such a good thing to see. Okay. So let's start. So the lecture today, actually, I'm very disappointed that people did not see this lecture, because this lecture is not only a lecture for your C programming. This is basically a lecture that if you are doing programming for the first time, this was the lecture that you should have certainly watched. Okay. Um it's more about a programming paradigm rather than C coding. Okay. In fact, there's really nothing new in it from the perspective of C. Probably recursion, but recursion is a very simple concept. So other than recursion, there was really nothing in that. It's all about programming paradigm, how you actually solve problems. Okay. And so I actually expected a lot of you to watch this video, and I wanted this. I thought we probably won't have enough time to discuss it, but I don't think there will be many questions because many people haven't watched it either. So let's start. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Shepherds, you can start.
So I would like to start. I would like to start with the basic definition of recursion. Recursion is when a function call itself. It's called recursion. Means it calls itself until it does not reaches the base case from where the value returns. Now, what is the difference between direct and indirect recursion? The direct recursion is when a function calls the same function itself again and again. It's called direct recursion. And indirect recursion is when a function calls the another function and that another function calls some other function is called indirect recursion.
Recursion is actually includes the function calling itself. It is following a loop. Call the function again, and it goes again back and start. So it is similar to it is similar to a loop. It is nothing but a repetition, and the direct recursion is nothing but function. There is only one function is calling itself, and the indirect is when there are two or more functions, and it is following a chain, nothing but a chain. Then it is called direct recursion.
So basic any basic doubts about what recursion is? It's a very simple concept, but still. There may not be too many doubts. Okay, so you can move to the next question.
Okay, so
So
divide
the
and
core idea.
conquer is
So you can take on.
go ahead.
Okay. So core idea of divide and conquer approach is to break down a simple problem into sub problems of the same type.
Yeah, so divide and conquer is a really powerful but also really simple idea. It is one of the most important and most used um, concepts in like making your programs faster, especially if you do competitive coding and stuff. Then divide and conquer is your best friend almost. So the core idea of divide and conquer is if you can break down a problem into problems of like half its size or maybe third its size. Let's say half its size for simplicity's sake. Then you can solve them again recursively in problems of half its size, so on. So in this way, you can reduce the main problem to a really simple base case. So for example, finding the smallest number in an array. Let's take that example. I hope it will make this more clear. So if we have, let's say, a sorted array and we want to find the smallest number, the technique which I'll be talking about is called uh, actually no, smallest number in an array. Okay, sorry, this is something else. Finding a number in an array. This is a different example, but I hope this makes it clear. This is basically called binary search. You might have heard about it. So what binary search does is, if you have an array of sorted integers, you basically look at the middle element. Since it is sorted, you're guaranteed to have it in order. So if the number you're searching for is less than this middle element, then you look at the left of the array. Otherwise, you look at the right of the array. So in just one step, we have reduced the size of the problem by from n to n by 2. Then in the next step, similarly, we can read. Is my voice breaking for you guys?
No,
Yeah,
no, it's
okay,
fine.
thank you.
It's fine.
Yeah, great. So in one step, we have reduced the problem size from n to n by 2. Then again, if we do this again recursively, we can reduce the problem size from n by 2 to n by 4, n by 4 to n by 8. So in this way, and in the final case, when there is just one element in the array, it is just the base case and really trivial. The number is either found or not found. So yeah, so in this way we reduce the problem to something really small. And if we talk about the number of steps we take, I think you guys can see that it is logarithmic. Like it's like 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 4 plus 1 by 8 and so on. So it's basically log n. So yeah, it becomes really fast compared to searching through each and every element, which may be like yeah, and yeah. Would you guys like to take question number 3?
The question number 3, A part, as the Pranav said, we will search the array by becoming it into halves. Generally, when we are searching for a number, for the left side, as generally we take in an increasing order, and if we are defining for the largest number, we'll in the right side, and on till the number arrives, we go on breaking the into halves for the question A.
Yes, for the part B also, for finding the sum of all elements in an array, what we will do, we will divide the array into half until we does not get a single element in the array, and then we will return the value of that single element.
Has any questions, anyone?
There isn't chart. See the chart.
Yeah, Nehal, actually, yeah, that is why I did not use that example. I used it for finding any random number from a sorted array. So this isn't like divide and conquer in third question A part isn't exactly like binary search. It's like you're recursively breaking it into half and returning the lowest element. Yeah, exactly. If the array sorted first element would be smallest, correct. So it's like you're looking at the first half of the array and trying to find the smallest element there. Then you're trying to find the smallest element from the second half of the array, and the smallest element by definition is the smallest of those two. So you can do that recursively. So in the end, if you have an array of size 2, it will be the lowest of those two. So yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, actually, Nehal, it was it was not meant to be for the idea is if you are given an array and you have to find the smallest number in the array. Let us say if you want to apply the divide and conquer approach, what is like the best way to do it? So as Pranav explained, so you can divide the array into, let us say, two parts, okay? And you say that let's say half, 0 to midpoint first, and midpoint plus 1 to, let us say, size minus 1. These are two parts, and I say the smallest number in the array is basically I find the smallest number in the left half, I find the smallest number in the right half, and then whichever is smaller, I have only two numbers, right? And whichever is smaller, I declare that as the smallest. Right? Now, how do I find smallest number in the left half versus the smallest number in the right half? I do it recursively. Recursively, as in, uh, let us say I have created a function called small, and I give it the array and two indices in the array, right? This is the beginning and this is the end. So this is the part of the array where I want to find the smallest number. So then recursively, I essentially do like this, that small of, let us say, ARR 0 comma n. If the code that will be written in that will be something like this, whichever is smaller between small 0 to midpoint and small midpoint to sorry, n minus 1, whatever it is, then you basically compare just two numbers, right? And you say, okay, if this one is larger, this one is smaller, this is the smallest number. So this was kind of the idea, that you understand how to find the smallest number in the array. It's very simple, right? You can also simply go through the array from the beginning to the end, and you keep on storing the smallest number that you have encountered till now, and at the end, that is the answer. But I just wanted to I wanted you guys to understand that if you are applying divide and conquer approach to the same problem, what is the way you will do it, right? This is the idea, that there are two very simple examples, and this is what I want you guys to understand, that the core idea of divide and conquer is that you have a problem of, let us say, size n. Okay, now exactly what does it mean by size n? That will depend from problem to problem. Okay, different problems, the meaning of what is size n will be different, right? So for example, in case of factorial, size n actually meant that the number for which I have to find the factorial is n. For binary search, size n meant that the array which I am getting, in which I have to do the search, it has n elements. So there will be different problems, and as you do more and more practice, especially your competitive coding platforms, when you write more code there, you'll start getting the idea of what is n, right? What exactly are you getting as n? And then the idea of divide and conquer is that you, at each stage, at each step, you just try to define the solution in a recursive fashion, right? So essentially you say, if I have answer available somehow, not how, no, I'm not telling how, but somehow if you have found the answer to a smaller sub problem, one or more smaller sub problems, how do I simply combine them together and find the larger solution? If you are able to do that, this is the idea, then the only thing you need to figure out is a base case, as in, you are now, you keep dividing the problem at each stage into smaller one or more sub problems, and then at one particular point, okay, when the problem is too simple, for example, in the case of finding the smallest number, there will be a time when you keep on breaking this array into left right parts, and then you will be left with an array of only size 2, right? So now its left part has a single element and its right part has a single element. So then you can make a direct comparison, right? A and B can be compared directly, and then you say, okay, A is bigger than B, kind of thing. So that is the idea, right? So from there onwards, you simply so it's like this, you are going down a tree, and when once you reach the tip of a branch, um, from there onwards you go back, okay, and then you construct your solution. I mean, that is one a way to look at it. So this is the whole idea of divide and conquer, okay, that whenever you are given a problem, this is the way you should approach it, right? If it's a difficult problem, usually the easiest way to do that is through recursion, where you define the problem at a smaller level first. You say that if I have my solution available for a smaller sized problem, how do I combine these two smaller sized problem into the solution? And then how you solve them, how you solve the smaller problems, you do that using recursion, because the same funda applies to the smaller sub problem as well, unless you reach a point. So for example, in the case of factorial, I kept on doing factorial n minus 1, factorial n minus 1, until I reached 1, right? At 1, I know that factorial 1 is 1, right? So then from there onwards, things have to go back. Now Karthik had a question, where exactly are these values getting stored, right? So this is a very important question. What happens is, there is a concept of stack, okay? There is a let me just type it so that you guys can Google it. There is something known as stack, okay? So what the simplest example of stack is, let us say you've gone to a party, and let us say these people, the caterers, they are arranging the plates, okay, plates for your food. So what do? They basically put a plate, and then they have to put a napkin between two plates like this, right? So how do they do it? They basically put a plate, they put a napkin over it, then they put another plate, then they put another napkin over it, another plate, another napkin, okay, another plate, another napkin. This is how they set up the plates, right, in a party. Now when when dining starts, what happens? The plate that was put on the top will be picked up first, right? This is usually how people will go about, right? That the plate on the top gets picked up first. The plate that was put at the end, right, it will be picked up last, okay? So we call this thing as LIFO, last in, first out, okay? So now start assuming that there is an array, okay? You have an array of size, let us say 5, okay? And instead of, and you guys have already written code for insertion, right? So in insertion, what do? I tell you a particular index in the array, and that is where you go and insert the element. And how do you insert the element? You simply shift everything that was there at this point to the right, right? I mean, let us say if the array is of size 5 and I want you to insert something at index 2, whatever is present from index 2 to the right, I shift it to the right, I create a space, a vacant space, and then I insert the new value there. Now assume that I have an array which is a special type of array, where the only thing that I can do with it is that the insertions will always take place at the beginning and not at any other index. So then what will happen? It will be something like this. Um, Let me just give you an example. The first number I wanted to insert, let us say, was 1. So now the array looks like this. Then somebody asked me to insert the number 2. So now the array will look like this. Then someone says insert number 3. The array will look like this. Then someone says insert number 4. The array will look like this, okay? So do you understand that this is basically the insertion operation, but the index at which the insertion happens is always 0. There is no other index that you are allowed to insert at. Similarly, the deletion also happens only at index 0, okay? So you can, at any point of time, you can only delete the element at index 0, okay? So then if I start deletion, after first deletion it will become this, after second deletion it will become this, and after third deletion it will become this, right? So now if I have a special type of array where this insertion and deletion has been restricted like this, we call such a data type such a data structure as stack. Okay, so a stack is a kind of array which has just one end opened up. Okay, so the other, so you assume it's like a tumbler, right? I mean, where you can only put values and take values out from the mouth and nothing from the, it's not a pipe. Okay, it's a tumbler as in a jar or something, that you put everything from the same end and you take out everything from the same end. So what happens is, when you run a particular program, whenever you call a function, what really happens is, and you understand this, right, that when the function returns, your program starts executing from the same place, right? So let's say in the main function you called another function. When the value is available after the function returns, your main function continues execution from there. So in the back, things are managed through stacks. Okay, so there is a stack element. Okay, as someone has said, Naveed has said, there is something known as an activation frame. So whenever a function is running, there is an activation frame for that function, and that activation frame has all the memory that is required to run your function. So all your local variables, okay, those auto variables, I said now that whenever your function returns, the memory allocated to the local variables goes away. How does it go away? It happens because of this thing only, that a new activation frame was inserted in the stack, and as soon as the function returns, uh, that activation frame is removed. Okay, so there was an insertion in the stack, and as soon as the function returns, there is a deletion from the stack. So all that memory that was allocated for your activation frame goes away. Okay, so now Karthik had a question that when we keep on doing this recursion, what really happens? Where exactly are these values getting stored? So they actually get stored in these stacks. Okay, so when you do recursion, that is why recursion is a bit heavy on the implementation side, right? Why? Because for each function call that you make, an activation frame is added in the stack, and that activation frame cannot be removed until the function returns. So what happens is, when you do recursion, let us say there are n calls to the function f. What happens is, n activation frames are to be maintained in the memory at one point of time, and when the base case is reached, you simply return something like 1. Okay, so then the the most recent function call now finally returns, it returns a hard value. So then it goes back to the previous one. Small. Oh, sorry, no sound. Sorry. Um,
So you're audible.
okay. Okay. No, Navid. The idea is this: the size of the activation frame is usually a constant. Okay, it is not usually. I think it's mostly a constant only. Um, the problem is, if you actually have recursion which goes up to, let us say, millions of million, if you have a recursion of million depth, then there is a chance that your program might run out of memory. That is a real problem with recursion, right? And that is why,
Sir,
um,
uh,
go ahead.
actually, my point was, suppose if in the input I use a large sized array, the very large array,
Yeah.
sir, then that will cause the memory problem, na?
Actually, usually arrays are not really passed by reference, passed by value. So basically, whenever you send an array, it's only the array's starting address that gets passed. Okay, so that, just for array it doesn't apply, but yes, in general, whatever inputs you give to a function, that has to be copied. Okay, uh, and if you have a lot of inputs for a particular function, then yes, but the idea that I told you is that that amount of memory will anyhow be allocated to your function, right? I mean, the size of your activation frame, I'll have to check it up again, what how exactly is C doing this. um, no extra memory. I mean, in fact, from what I understand, the size of your activation frame is a constant. Okay, it's not like if you have a void function, a function that doesn't take any input, its activation frame will be shorter. I don't think so that is how it could be, maybe some optimization might be happening there, but from what I understand, it is not. It is usually a fixed amount that you assign a fixed amount of memory for each activation frame. So it doesn't really matter how many parameters you've got. What really matters is what is the depth of your recursion, how many layers, right, are getting added to your stack. And if these number of if the depth goes high, there is a real chance that your program might run out of memory. So this is a problem with recursive solutions, that while recursive solutions are easy to so they are usually the first cut solutions to problems. Okay, let me say it like this, that when you'll start doing this competitive coding, many a times if you are trying to solve a hard problem, it is easier to come up with a recursive solution first. Okay, because you'll actually see that, okay, um, you know I have solutions to these smaller sub problems, and if I combine them like this, I'll get the solution to the larger problem. So it's easier to and you will understand it when you do more practice, that why recursion is such a nice thing. Okay, why when you're trying to solve a hard problem, it is so easy to think about it in terms of recursion. But when you'll probably go for your final job interviews, right, at that point of time, when you go for an interview, there is a good chance that the interviewer might not be impressed with a recursive solution. Okay, because recursive solutions have a lot of overhead, as in that I told you that you have to actually add stacks, add activation frames to a stack, which is not too good from performance perspective. So that is why the final solution that we usually implement and put in production is an iterative solution, which involves loops. But when you're solving a problem for the first time, it is often easier to come up with a recursive solution. So Karthik, sorry I took so much time, but I wanted to answer Karthik's query, that what happens is that the whenever you call a function, a piece of memory is fixed in the RAM, and that contains all the context related to this particular function call. And as soon as this function returns, that memory is removed. Okay, and where exactly is this memory maintained? It is maintained in a stack fashion, so that last in first out. So the most recent function call, its memory sits on the top. Okay, the memory allocated for that function sits on the top, and when that function returns, that memory frame is removed. Then the next function, right, in the call chain, that function executes. When it returns, that memory is removed as well. If you are not getting a clear picture, just type stack on Google and read what a stack is, right? And you'll understand all the things that I simply told you. I did give you this 1 2 3 4 example, but if you're still not sure, let me see if I can find out a picture on Google. That will be probably easier for you to understand. Stack. uh, there are so many pictures. Let me just reshare this with you guys. uh, Screen, Chrome tab. Okay, so this is the idea. The insertion and deletion operations in a stack are also known as and pop. Okay, uh, they are not insertions and deletions anymore. They are known as push and pop. So when you push something, um, uh, a number, let us say 1, is getting pushed in the stack. And I told you, right, that a stack, you can assume a stack is more like a tumbler. You add something to it from the same end, and you take out something from the same end. So this is a LIFO thing, last in first out. Whatever gets added at the top it gets removed first. So just assume that these data elements are basically some kind of act, and this is what Naveed had said. They are basically activation frames, right? They are the context that are required to execute a function call. So the idea is whenever there is a function call, that function calls context data gets added to the stack. Then if that function calls another function, that comes and sits on top of that function's activation frame, so on and so forth. And when the opposite happens, you can understand, right, that basically the most recent function call is removed from the stack first, then the next recent call, and so on and so forth. And the last activation frame in the stack is for your main function. That is the idea. Okay, sorry, this was not intended, but because there were no queries today, I thought activation frame. Yes, they are the same. I mean, actually, activation record is probably more correct term. Um, Frame is from a, so frame probably is not that accurate, but activation frame is also a common term. But they are actually the same thing only. It contains a memory. So basically, this is a part of your memory where all your local variables are created. So whenever you call a function, you need some space, right, where your local variables, the auto variables, are created. So they are created in this activation frame, okay, or activation record, whatever you call it. And there is some more information, like there is something known as a return address. So when you are done, when the function is completed, you have to go back, right, go back to some instruction from where this function call was made. So you have to store a return address. So usually these are the things that are stored in an activation record. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, in the third question, the B part, that find sum using divide and conquer thing.
Hmm.
Sir, anyway, we have to take all the elements into account. Like we have to find the sum, so we will definitely have to take all the
Yes. Yes.
elements of the array.
Yes.
Sir, what
Yes.
difference would it make using the divide and conquer technology? Because it is like we do it to reduce the number of steps we are going to make
So if I'm
for
not wrong, your question is, you can simply write a simple loop from one end to the other. Um, what is the advantage of using divide and conquer? Is this your question?
no, sir, not for everything, just for the sum part.
Some part,
This
just
question. Yes, sir.
okay. So if let me just reshare uh, this again. Mm. Okay. So see, the idea is this. Um, you can actually solve the same problem from in different fashions. This is the idea in programming. There is usually never a single solution to the same problem. There are multiple ways to do that. When I say you have to find the sum of all elements in an array, um, the most, at least till what you have learned till now, probably the most natural way to solve this problem is that you start from the beginning. Let's just say you write a loop int I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, and you basically create a variable like sum equal to 0, and then you simply say sum plus equal to arri, kind of thing, right? That is the most natural way to find the sum of all elements. Now this is fine, this is absolutely fine, and usually this is what we will do as well. But I wrote this example so that you can try to apply the idea of divide and conquer. Okay, the idea of divide and conquer is it doesn't mean that divide and conquer is going to give you a solution which is different or which is more accurate as compared to, let us say, a simple loop that you will put through. Okay, that is why I said divide and conquer is a way to reason the solution. Okay, to figure out a solution of a difficult problem. These are very simple problems. You can actually solve them without any issue. I'm pretty sure if you go to your competitive coding platforms, you will find one problem at least that you will not be able to figure out um, in one iteration, right? I mean, you won't be able to understand what loop should I write in order to solve this problem, right? So in such cases, divide and conquer is a way of thinking about it. So for example, if I want to apply divide and conquer to the sum of elements problem, what would I do? I will simply say, okay, so in order to sum all the elements in an array, it will be it will be good if I simply sum the elements on the left part, and I sum up the elements on the right part. Then I have two sums, right? And if I sum these two sums, I'll get the answer. So again, it's a way of thinking. I have divided the problem like this, that I had a problem of size n, right? That there are n elements, and I wanted to find their sum. So I said, let me find the sum for n by 2 elements, let me find the sum for the other n by 2 elements, and then I'll simply add them together and I have the solution. Now, how do I find the sum for the n by 2 elements? I have not decided, right? Because that is a recursive thing. But when I do recursion, I need a base case. At some point of time, the answer should be obvious, right? And in the case of sum of array, what will be the obvious case? When you reach the array part of size 1, right? What is the sum of all the elements of an array of size 1? It is the element itself, right? So from there onwards, you will simply start going up. You say, okay, it is an array of size 1, the sum of all the elements is the element itself. So you simply return arri from there. And then, this is how the solution gets built up in a bottom up approach. So that is why I said it's like a tree. You start from the trunk, and you take up different branches, and at one point of time, you will reach the end of the branch, and from there onwards you travel back to the trunk. Is it making sense? I mean, can you imagine what I'm trying to say?
Sir, I wanted to ask, like, sir, is binary search a recursion? Am I audible?
Sorry, I lost you.
Yes, sir, I wanted to ask, is binary search a recursion?
Is See, binary search is a problem. Okay, you can solve it using recursion as well. Okay, you can solve it iteratively, or you can solve it using recursion. Now, if you are doing it through recursion, most probably whatever you are doing is divide and conquer, right?
Yes,
um,
sir.
right, this is the idea, that binary search is a problem, right? This problem has multiple solutions. One of those solutions is a recursive solution. You can also do it without recursion.
No, so my question was like, divide and conquer and recursion. So like,
Mhm,
from what I understood, both are like a different approach. So like in divide and conquer, we simply do is reduce the number of steps.
mhm,
We reduce the number of steps to get a solution,
mhm,
which we could have done by using iteration.
mhm,
But
mhm,
in recursion, we
mhm,
use the previous results. So like in find sum of all the elements of an array.
mhm.
So I don't think using divide and conquer we would like make any difference of reducing the step, because
No, no, no.
halving.
That is what I said. That these are very simple problems, and because you already know the iterative solutions to them, here, you might feel that divide and conquer is a bit too hard. I'll give you a simple example. Um, at some point of time in your life, you would have decided that I want to appear in JEE, right? And you would have said that, okay, in fact, you would have started from something like, I want to be an engineer. This would have been the first life choice you would have made. Then the next thing would be, I can become an engineer by either qualifying IIT JEE or AI Okay, I think now AI is no longer there. There might be certain more exams. So I can pick any of these exams, and if I qualify any of them, I'll become an engineer, something like this. So divide and conquer is similar to saying I want to be an engineer. Okay, it's at that level. Now divide and conquer can be done through recursion or through iteration, right? So recursion is usually the easier way to figure out, right? Because sometimes when the problem is complicated, it's easiest to simply represent a problem in terms of similar sub problems. Okay, it's basically it is like saying I can solve this larger problem if I can solve the same problem but for a smaller input. If somehow I am able to come up with a solution which is in this format, then it is easiest to implement it using recursion. That is the idea, right? It doesn't mean that that is the only way this problem can be solved. You can always come up with another way to solve the problem. So when I say I want to find the sum of all elements of an array, um, and let us say I want to do it using divide and conquer approach, there can be two ways to do it, right? I mean, there can be either an iterative solution or a recursive solution. So let us say if I want to do it in a iterative fashion, how would I do it? I'd basically, the one way we have already seen, that you start from 0 and you go up to n minus 1 and you sum up everything. Another way could be something like you start from the middle. One variable sums up stuff in the so you start from the midpoint, and then one variable sums up everything on the left. So you take I and j, they both start from midpoint. You do I minus minus and do j plus plus. I'm just trying to come up with some more variants, right, for the iterative solution. So there are so many ways to do the same stuff. It's just that probably you don't appreciate you are not able to appreciate the whole concept of divide and conquer, because the problems we are seeing are too simple. I actually wanted to give a hard problem to you guys, but then I thought maybe I'm just, again, trying to teach so much of you in one iteration itself. These are things that you will learn in your algorithms course. Okay, so all these divide and conquer, I only decided to teach you that because it is a programming paradigm also. The recursion is often used as the first cut solution for divide and conquer approach. So this is why I merged both of them. The only thing that I should have taught you is recursion. I should not have given you the idea of divide and conquer. But then most of you would have simply said, what is the need to use recursion? We can do the same stuff. We can calculate factorial and binary search with loops as well. Okay, so why do we need recursion? The only reason I told you about recursion is because you can at least understand that why recursion is such a good tool. Because if you can figure out how a larger problem can be solved by solving smaller sub problems, then maybe recursive solution is the best way to implement it in the first go. Am I making sense, or am I just wandering around? If it's not making sense, I'll try to to answer your question in a different fashion.
No, sir, it's understood. Sir,
Okay.
also, uh, the thing we were using like sum plus equal to 2, like is also recursion.
Sum plus equal to 2. Sorry, I didn't get that.
Like sum is equal to sum plus 2,
No,
sum
that
is
is
equal
not
to sum.
recursion. That is just like saying, you do this, right? I plus plus is what? I equal to I plus 1. So it's the same thing. That sum equal to sum plus something.
Sir, but still it is using the previous results
Oh, so
to
sum is,
add.
so when you say sum is a function, is it? So you say sum is a
Okay,
function. That is what I, not a
okay, okay,
variable.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then, yeah, yes, that is what I was saying. The sum equal to something like this. Let us say. Let me write it. So this is a function which takes int asterisk arr, int beginning and int end, and it returns, let us say, an int. Um, so what I'm saying is something like this, uh, that if your um, if beg is double equal to end, that means that you only have a single element array, then you simply return um, arr beg. Okay. um, Else what you do is this, simply do return some arr 0 to, okay, let's just assume that I have created a, I'll have to put all these things actually. So it's like a mid is there, right? Mid equal
No,
to,
sir, understood.
right? So you understood that this I'll put something here plus something here. Okay. So this is the idea that now what this is a kind of divide and conquer using recursion. That basically, when I'm just splitting the array in the middle, and then I'm summing it recursively. I'm summing this part recursively, and then I'm simply returning the sum and as the sum of all the. This is the idea. Okay. Is it clear, right? I mean, so this is not really a lecture on C programming. This is basically about problem solving. Okay. How do you solve a given problem? This is about reasoning. You know. So any more questions? I could not go through all the chats. Um,
So,
yeah.
sir, why do we need a pointer variable here, sir?
Okay. So basically, this is I realized that this was actually a poor example right from the beginning when someone asked me this question. The idea is this: arrays are not, they are not copied when you send them from one function to another. The only thing that travels whenever you pass an array, the only thing that is passed is essentially the address, the starting address of the array. That is the only thing that gets passed. So and we will study more about passing pointers in the next week. So there is something known as call by value and call by reference. So arrays are passed by reference. All the other values are passed by values. um, so just let's like keep this query till the next week. Once we have done uh, pass by reference, then you'll understand why it is a pointer.
Okay. Sir,
Yeah.
sir, what is the difference between trivial and the base case, sir, in divide and
So
conquer?
so basically, when I say trivial simply means that at this point, I can actually explain to you what my solution is in terms of a simple element. So, for example, that simple element was n, right? In the case of factorial, I simply said if I multiply factorial n minus one by n, then I have the solution, right? So it's when I say trivial, it trivial means that it's very simple to explain it to someone. It's not really an algorithm, it's like an expression. Okay. um, if you come and ask me how do you calculate factorial, if I tell you n into factorial n minus 1, okay, that is not really an algorithm, that's like an expression. I told you that find the factorial of n minus 1 and multiply it with n and you get it, right? And then the person will say, okay, and how will you find the factorial of n minus 1? I'll say in the same fashion, right? You find you basically do n minus 1 into factorial n minus 2, and then the person would say, but how long will this thing go? Then you'll say, okay, this thing will go until n becomes 1. At that time you simply say factorial 1 is 1. Okay. So this is the base case. Base case is basically the point at which your recursion ends. Okay, at which point you don't make another call to the function again, but you simply return a value. Okay, that is the base case. And these trivial things are so it's like this: the trivial solutions are both. So the base case solution is also a trivial solution, right? So if I ask you what is factorial 1, you don't have to tell me an algorithm. You tell me it's factorial 1 is 1. If you tell me whether this particular element is in this array or not, and the array size is 0, you'll say yeah, it is not there, right? There can be nothing in a 0 sized array. So basically the solution is trivial. You figure out the, the meaning of the word trivial is the same as it is in English language. Trivial as in it's very simple. It's you can tell it to someone, and the other person will simply understand. That is the idea of trivial. Okay? And base case means that when you are doing this recursion, at one point of time, you don't need to do any further recursion. You simply tell the answer that this is the trivial answer. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, and don't worry,
So,
I mean, these terms will become clearer to you as you do more programming. Yeah, go ahead.
so,
Who was? Yeah.
sir, I have read somewhere that we can not return the address of the local variable, but the answer is not known.
Returning the address of a local variable doesn't make any sense because as you understand that it will be stored in a stack frame, right? And then that frame goes away. You understand? So, but what is your question?
So that why cannot we return the address of the local variable?
Because, right, I mean, if the local variable gets created in a stack, right? As soon as the function returns, that stack frame is removed. So even if the address is there, it is now a dangling pointer. It is pointing to a location that is not containing what you expect it to contain.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hmm. So Nehal, yeah, trivial cases, basically there is no computation required. That is also another way to say that, or as I said, sometimes you can also use the term trivial element, that there is an element for which you don't have to compute anything. So for example, in case of factorial, n was my trivial element. I did not have to do anything, n into something else, right? So that is a trivial element. I did not do any more hi-fi computations. It's not necessary that no computation. So for example, n by 2 would have also been trivial, right? When you'll go in when you study this algorithms course, you'll understand that trivial essentially means that the solution is an order 1 solution, O1. Okay. Maybe if you guys are already aware of it, then this is something like this. Then the solution to your problem is O1. Okay, that is known as a trivial solution. Okay. So it's not on, it's not on log n, it's not on square. You can simply explain the solution in O1. That is the trivial case. Okay. Okay, so uh, I think we have had a good discussion, and the time is also up. So from next week onwards, as of now, so I'm deciding to stick with the same model. Um, I provided a link at the in the homework. It's from Geeks for Geeks. They have given certain examples. Okay, some half a dozen or more examples of how divide and conquer is applied to different types of problems. So you can have a look at it. I'm not sure. The problem is I don't know what uh, so that those examples are probably a little more advanced, and that is why it's difficult to explain it to you in a classroom setting, because it's a first course in programming. Ideally, I should not be teaching all these things to you at all. Okay. I am trying to teach you so much of computer science in just the first semester, which is probably wrong. But the idea is, if you can understand those examples, um, at least try to understand the algorithm, if not the code. Okay, try to understand what is the algorithm in the Geeks for Geeks link that I've given. Is it? There was one. Have I given only one example? Okay, there
Yes,
were.
sir, I checked. It was only one.
Just a minute. So there are two links actually. Just a minute. I don't think I. This is the one that I'm talking about. Mm, this is the one. See, open this one. They have examples for quick sort, merge sort. Um, then there are some longest common prefix. Okay, you can open this link, and then you can see. Actually, there are two links on Geeks for Geeks. I probably pasted the simpler one. So this one was what I was talking about. Okay, just go through this. They have a lot of examples there, and some of them are actually quite advanced. You might not be able to understand it, but see if you can understand. See if you can get. The idea is just to grasp the concept of divide and conquer. If you have understood the concept, you can move ahead. Okay, you will study all these things in algorithms, don't worry. Okay, I'm just probably giving you guys a heads up, a head start on some of the other courses that you are going to take up in your computer science journey. I probably tried to give you guys some heads up in even these things like activation record, stack, queue, linked list, all these things you are going to study, don't worry. I'm just introducing it to you so that it whets your appetite. You understand what are the things that are coming on your way in the next few semesters. Okay, uh, so that's it. So we'll meet on Monday, and we are going to stick with the same formula as of now. Okay, this recorded lectures and shepherding, and I'll see how it goes. If the class response becomes poorer, I'll become the hardline instructor again. Okay, so where I'll ask you guys to become shepherds at random. Okay, thank you guys. We'll meet on Monday. Bye.
Thank you, sir.